Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to be together this morning in this virtual way. Um, we ask that you make your presence known as we study your word, and be with those who feel alone right now and those who are sick and those who are working to make the world a better place. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
My cat's here now. He likes to play with these things.
I don't have a cat.
Okay, so today we're going to be reading chapter 2 and 3 of James. Our original plan was to do like the once a month Bible study, but now that we're kind of living like this, we decided we'd go ahead and finish James, and then we could start something new if we have the chance. So just like a recap, we read chapter 1 last month. We also did like a little intro of who James is and stuff. So we're just gonna go over some of that stuff again. Real quick, do all of y'all have Bibles out or like on your phone? Yeah.
Yes.
So the Bible that I'm reading from is the NRSV translation. And so there are lots and lots of different translations of the Bible. But in the Episcopal Church, during all of our worship services, we use the NRSV version. But I know some other popular ones like NIV, or there's one called The Message that's a little more, it's not approved for worship, but it's like, it has an interesting translation and word usage. So just like remember that as we talk through some of this stuff, if yours says something a little bit different and you think it sounds more profound or connects with you more, just like let us know what it's saying. Yeah. So then, Cece, do you remember who James is?
He's Jesus' brother.
Yeah, so we think that James was one of Jesus's younger brothers. And so when Hannah and I were like reading, kind of like studying for this and looking at the background things, oh my God, stop. Dad keeps trying to knock over my plants, and he broke a pot last night. Anyway, so sorry. But so in the book of Matthew, it says that Jesus had 3 younger brothers and then an unknown amount of sisters, because women or females weren't counted or kind of weren't recorded like men were. And so in our reading, it also said that Jesus' family was kind of ashamed of him while Jesus was alive. And it took Jesus dying for them to realize the importance and realize who he actually was, which is an interesting thing because that would have been a crazy time to kind of be alive and to have known Jesus, or to have been a family member of someone that's claiming to be the Son of God. Also, so James is in the New Testament, and it falls in the epistle section kind of it. So when we're in church on a Sunday for like a normal Eucharist service, the first thing we read is an Old Testament reading, and then a psalm, and then an epistle from the New Testament, and then a gospel, which also is from the New Testament. And so that's why at the beginning of chapter 1, it's like addressing a letter. He's like, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion. And then he kind of goes into teaching. And this is a very social gospel. And a lot of it sounds kind of like the Old Testament. They're like very preaching and laying down the law, which is different than a lot of the other epistles in the New Testament. And so one of the major kind of things throughout James is that it's clear that he's writing to people who believe in God and know who God is, but are truly wanting to get closer to him. So the things that he's saying are like ways for people to draw closer to God in the way that they live in their lives. And that's kind of what we talked about last time, and kind of who James is and some context. All right, Hannah, do you want to do chapter 2?
Yeah, so what we wanted to do was, if y'all can think about this, what we're going to do is we're going to read chapter 2, talk about it, and then we'll read chapter 3 and talk about it. So we're not reading huge chunks at a time. But one of the questions that we want y'all to think about when we just begin to read this is, how does this apply to our world today? And I think that question right now has a different weight for all of us than that question normally would. So I think it's a great time for us to kind of talk about how this fits into our world today, and then our world like today, and what we're all kind of facing and what that kind of looks like for us. So we're going to start with chapter 2. And there's kind of, I guess, let's read through the full thing, and then we're going to kind of go by section. So does anybody want to start us off and read kind of the first maybe 7 or 8 verses, and then somebody else can pick up?
I will. You want?
Okay, perfect. So just read, and then when you want to stop, if somebody else can just pick up, and we'll just go through the end of chapter 2.
Okay. My brothers, show no partiality as you hold the faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory. For if a man wearing a gold ring and fine clothing comes into your assembly, and a poor man in shabby clothing also comes in, and if you pay attention to the one who wears the fine clothing and say, "You sit here in a good place," while you say to the poor man, "You stand over there," or "Sit down at my feet," have you not then made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen those who are poor in the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom, which he has promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor man. Are not the rich the ones who oppress you, and the ones who drag you into court? Are they not the ones who blaspheme the honorable name by which you were called? That's the end of a paragraph for me. I can keep going though if you want.
We go a little bit further?
All right.
Okay.
If you really fulfill the law, the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you are committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become accountable for all of it. For he who said, "Do not commit adultery," also said, "Do not murder." If you do not commit adultery but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also, by faith itself, if it does not have works, is dead, faith by itself. But someone will say, "You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by works. You believe that God is one. You do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, that faith apart from works is useless? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed in God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. And he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. And in the same way, was not also Rahab the prostitute justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way? For as the body apart from the spirit is dead, so also faith apart from works is dead.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I heard your rooster in the background.
You did. That's why I'm muting myself.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for reading that. Let's go back to the top and let's look at kind of 1 through 7 as a first little chunk. What sticks out in that section?
Well, I had gone through this before for school, and the only thing that I'd underlined in that chunk was show no partiality.
What do you think? What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, it means, treat everybody the same, kind of regardless of what they look like or seem like to you, which is, yeah.
What does blaspheme mean in 7?
That sticks out to you?
No, I just don't know what it means.
I'm trying to think of how to explain that. I think the best way to put that is like speaking poorly, I guess would be, I'm going to look it up, but I think that means like speaking poorly.
So blasphemy means to like speak sacrilegiously about God,
Right.
like denouncing a name or saying that something isn't true that God has said is true.
Yeah, speak inadvertently about God or sacred things.
Uh-oh.
So one of the things that sticks out to me, kind of like Carissa said, is I think it's verse 2 where it talks about if a person who is poor comes in and you take notice of the one who's wearing the fine clothes. I think that's such a small thing that we like often think separates us, and like this is telling us to not do that, right? But I think about how that's one example of how many times I've been guilty of doing that same thing, right? Like showing partiality towards someone else. But I think James is calling us to think about like that's such a small thing, and how like that's not supposed to be something that we show favoritism towards, but it's supposed to be something that actually we can think about and bring us all together, and not have it be something that separates us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, especially like, I think it's saying like, don't, judge people off of trivial things, and just like, don't judge people and like be kind. And I think like one way like this kind of relates back, like this whole paragraph is like in our society today, like we have like Instagram, and like, it's just very judgmental because you just see kind of like one picture of somebody and you kind of like form like judgment about their whole life. So like, that's one thing for me. Like I was kind of thinking about how our society is very trivial like that in certain ways, and Instagram was something that just like automatically like popped into my head. So
And I think a lot of people try to say things about themselves with how they dress. Like, so you would treat people differently depending on what kind of clothes they're wearing. I mean, nowadays it still is somewhat, poor versus expensive looking stuff, but it's also like a lot of different kind of subcategories that of like you would treat someone different who's dressed like a goth than someone who's wearing Simply Southern t-shirt probably. And this is kind of saying for me to try to look past that and treat everyone like a person.
Right. Does anybody else or have anything else for that section, or can we move on? The next section is kind of 8 through 13. So if y'all want to kind of scroll down or look down at your Bible and look at that 8 through 13 section. I will say this is a part that I personally wrestled with. It's a hard passage, this 8 through 13.
I like that it goes back to you shall love your neighbor as yourself, because that's like mentioned a lot throughout the Bible, and it just kind of ties it back.
Right. It's a great point. how do you see yourself living that love your neighbor as yourself out during everyday stuff?
Well, I guess I just kind of try to be nice to everybody, and it's hard because sometimes you don't want to be nice to people, but it's kind of like the treat others as you want to be treated. Like, don't be outwardly mean to people because that's just not cool, and you wouldn't want anybody to do the same to you.
So I think what makes this part so difficult is that, first of all, adultery and murder are really difficult topics and really horrible things to be a part of, kind of from any angle. And I think what challenges me is that it almost makes it seem like things like adultery and murder are on the same level. And so it says that, and so my translation, verse 10 says, "Whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has been accountable for all of it." So it makes it seem like the smallest mistake makes you accountable for everything too. And so that's like a difficult thing to think about. But I think it's a reminder of that even kind of judgmental thoughts or bad thoughts are kind of just as bad as these more physical sins. So like inward sin and outward sin, I guess. I don't know if that's a theological thing, but it's kind of thinking like that, that we have to catch ourselves even when we're doing the small things, because it's also something wrong in the law. But I do think that the end of the section, verse 13, when it talks about mercy, is really important. When it says, "For judgment will be without mercy to anyone who has shown no mercy, mercy triumphs over judgment." And I think that's probably that last little part, mercy triumphs over judgment. It's kind of the message of hope in that section, that, and a reminder to be merciful towards everyone.
It also, exactly what you said, kind of hits on that theme that we talked about last time about being double-minded, and how that is something that we should not strive to be, right? So to be like fully centered and always have like one, like Christ's intention in everything we do, versus this double-mindedness. And I think when you think about it, physical versus internal, that makes it kind of easier to understand. Does anybody else have thoughts for that section? So if y'all want to keep scrolling down, the next part we'll look at is kind of 14 through 17. It's talking about faith without works. What do y'all think of this part?
Well, I know there's kind of a big, I don't want to say argument, but discussion about, faith versus works, and like whether doing the right things can get you into heaven. But this is saying that you need both. That's what it's saying to me. That's what I hear.
That's a great perspective. One of the things that I'm gleaning out of this is that it's not by faith alone, but rather by faith, right? So it's not something that is solo.
I like the last sentence where it's like, so faith by itself, if it has no works, it's dead. Because if you have just faith, that's cool, but it's nothing if you don't do anything with it.
I always kind of thought of it as like hypocritical if you say you have faith but don't act on it. I don't know, that's just kind of my opinion. It kind of bugs me when people do that, but I mean, a lot of people do it. Again, it's kind of like a social thing. Like, you'll see people post on Instagram all this stuff about Christ and all these Bible verses, but in real life they act like not that, I guess is a nice way of putting it. So that kind of puts that whole thing into perspective. But yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of what stuck out to me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think one of the commentaries that we read was like, Christians are supposed to practice what they preach. And I think that kind of boiled it down to make a little bit more sense, because I was like, how does this really, like, what is this really saying? But how do y'all live that out? Like, how do you like, when you come to church and you learn these things and you hear the gospel, how do you then take that and put that into your everyday life?
Well, it's hard, and I feel like I do it better with people outside of my family than with my actual family who I live with. But yeah, sometimes something will stick out to me, and I'll like make a point in the next day to just focus on that one thing. But often it just kind of washes over me, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great I'm going to try to do that. That's a great point, to take one thing that kind of sticks out to you and work on that the next day. That's a great way to kind of work through things like that.
Yeah, one way that I try to think about it is that, like, for me, like, I'm just not going to church and like living it, like the gospel out or the scriptures out just on Sunday. Like, I try to like challenge myself to like take something kind of like Carissa was saying and like work on it all week, or just like really like be like thoughtful and like reflective about something I've learned in church, and then kind of like build off those principles in real life. So
I think, Caroline, like what you talked about, I think this is challenging us to, like, even when we are around people that might just have faith but not works, like how we respond to them and encourage them to like continue to work through their journey and to have both, right? Like, I think this verse kind of gives us hope and kind of equips us to walk alongside them too, right? So even those that maybe aren't as far along in their journey, that if we are, that we can partner and walk alongside with them and be invitational, invite them to dig deeper into their faith. Does anybody else have anything for this section? Okay, I think if we can go ahead, let's go down to chapter 3. Does somebody want to start reading?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. We all stumble in many ways. If anyone is never at fault in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to keep his whole body in check. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of his life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and creatures of the sea are being tamed, and have been tamed by man. But no man can tame the tongue. It is restless evil, full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring. My brothers, can a fig tree bear olives, or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life by deeds, done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but it's earthly, unspiritual, of the devil. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. And I think that was it. Yeah.
Gosh, I keep muting myself. Lillian, do you want to take us through this section?
Yeah. So let's talk through the first section. I guess it's verses 1 through 5. That's kind of how it's split up in my Bible. What sticks out to y'all in that section?
The whole thing about not many of you should presume to be teachers because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of in that, I don't know. I guess if you're asking others about Christ, stumble or make a mistake, or even if you don't, you'll still be, I don't know, judged in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that just comes with being a Christian in general too.
Yeah. I definitely think the word teacher in that is not an elementary school teacher, but anyone who teaches. So y'all are all members of SLT, y'all are all teachers to the middle schoolers, and just any position of being a role model. I think that's kind of how I picture it. About being judged more strictly. Anything else stand out in that part?
He said, if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. He was kind of we all make mistakes, and if you don't, you're perfect.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sarcastic, kind of. Yeah, I like how he lays that out, that all of us make many mistakes. So I think that's kind of comforting in a way.
Yeah, I think Caroline hit it, and you did too. It's okay that we make mistakes, right? That's part of who we are, and that's God sees that as a beautiful thing, right? That we're not perfect. And I think sometimes in our culture and society, that can be seen as such a negative thing. But if you really look at it, it's a beautiful thing that we're able to grow from those things that are our growing edges.
Yeah, but I also think it was saying, you have to be more careful when you're leading other people. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. Do y'all feel that kind of at church as members of SLT? Or as an acolyte, maybe?
I mean, I think speaking to that, it's saying when you are taking on the responsibility to guide somebody in their faith, you are going to be judged harder because that is such an important role and something that you should take not lightly. You shouldn't be up there preaching if you're not necessarily 100% sure what you're saying, maybe misleading people. But I think if you have an intention and you're doing it from a good place, you will get judged for it. But also I think doing that is like a very serious thing. And so that's kind of like what I got from that. But I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily right, but
Yeah, no, definitely. I would agree with that. What I like about this chapter in James is that he gives so many like visuals. So like in that first section, he talks about the horse and their like bits, and then like a boat and its rudder. Ooh, found it. And then in the rest of the chapter, I mean, it talks about like fire and streams and fig trees and just, I don't know. I think he just creates like really good visuals kind of the lessons he's trying to teach. So with that, let's move to the next part, which is 6 through 12. Just what sticks out to y'all from this part, and how does that kind of apply to our lives today?
I think the part in the 10th, number 10, whatever, from the same mouth come blessing and cursing. Like that kind of goes back to what we were saying about the last chapter, because it's like, if you, like, some people are good and they show their faith and they act good on one side, and then they'll turn around and like be mean to people or like not show their faith.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think it all goes back to, he had mentioned the double-mindedness earlier, kind of that there's always kind of these two forces. And then after that, he goes on to say, this ought not to be so. And so he definitely acknowledges that almost everyone, I mean, so like everyone makes mistakes, as he said, but like, he's like, with the words from your mouth, you should not be doing blessing and cursing. So he's like challenging us to that. Even though he acknowledges that everyone falls into that, but challenges us not to.
I also think one thing that kind of stood out to me is like, it's kind of hard to think this way sometimes, but like from this I got like your words, like they really do carry weight. And like when he's saying like your tongue can start a fire, like I just think like thinking about like what you're saying to others and like not being hypocritical and just being kind in what you're saying is like something super important to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it can be tempting to just kind of say whatever you feel like saying, but often that's not a good idea.
I mean, I guess kind of building off what Lizzie said, it's just like a lot of times we think that what we say doesn't really have an impact on not only others, but like our relationship with Christ. But obviously, based on this, it definitely does.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
No, y'all are all saying like great things. I also think like if we can think about like where we are right now in time and space, like how important this is ringing true, right? Like even though we're not physically together, like our words can mean so much to people right now, especially. And so how can we like challenge ourselves to like speak the gospel to those that we interact with when we're apart from them?
Oops.
I think that's kind of comforting, right? Like that we can be that light to people even when we're not physically with them. How are y'all, without digressing too much, but how are y'all navigating through that?
To this whole thing going on right now?
Yeah, like navigating through kind of being separated, but still being people.
I call people more. Like I called Claire yesterday and we talked for like 30 minutes. And I guess it's fine, but I don't like being at my house all the time.
I'm
But-
going on walks a lot. I went on a walk with Thea yesterday.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been like reaching out to me, and like I've been reaching out to a lot of people, and we've just been like texting back and forth and just kind of like reminiscing about like good memories. And I mean, it kind of stinks like this is like what it takes to be doing that, but like I realize like I'm thankful for like a lot of my relationships that I have through college, and like it's just really has been kind of a blessing to just sit there and like think about all that stuff and like think back about good times and everything. So.
It's been especially hard being like a senior and then realizing you've kind of taken everything for granted, and you're like, oh, I might not get to go back to school again or see these people or have prom or anything, and it sucks. But like it's also been kind of a period of reflection, like, oh, like look at what all I've been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it sucks.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't like the quarantine lifestyle at all. It's not very fun.
Well, if we do it
It's
well, then it shouldn't last as long as it.
Yeah,
If we don't do
hopefully.
it.
2
Yeah.
days ago, I spent 5.5 hours on an AP or a test because it was like a take-home test, so we had to explain why every answer was right. And it was really hard.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard because a lot of people, like my family, were being smart about this and we're not like going out because they're not supposed to be doing that. But I see like a lot of people hanging out and like I want to be with them, but at the same time, I know that's not really being safe. So it's kind of hard for me to see them being together when I'm trying to follow what is suggested.
Yeah, and I also think so. It was kind of weird. We had like a practice Zoom class yesterday that ended up lasting for like 2 hours because we're going to all online now. And our teacher was telling us like this is the time that like we can do so much good. Like we have nothing to do but like sit at home. And I know like Triumph Mercy Center is like asking for you to like donate bags and just little Ziploc things, which is like super easy to do. And like you're not putting yourself out like super risk. But like Hannah and I were like talking about yesterday like how we want to like do something with all this like newfound time that we have, like how it's super important to like give back right now, especially to people that don't really have like the luxury to like buy a bunch of items or in need of stuff, because it's like been really hard on everyone, but especially people that like don't have those resources. So maybe like kind of thinking of like ways you can do something good for someone else would be something good to do right now.
Some works to support your faith.
Right. And that makes me happy. Like, I mean, to know that y'all have, that you have friends in the church community too, that you can walk alongside with, right? Like whether it's a phone call or a physical walk or whatever that looks like. Just know that in all of it, that we're here to support you, even if it's from a Zoom call, but like we're always available for whatever y'all would like to walk through, you know? So anyway, not to digress us too much, let's finish, but I just felt like that was a good segue to think about our words and what, how, especially during this time, we can use those for the good, right? Okay, kicking it back to Lillian.
Yeah, so let's, that last little section of chapter 3, so verses 13 through 18. What things stick out to y'all?
The part where it says like if you have envy and selfish ambition, that doesn't come from heaven, that comes from earth. It's not heavenly, it's not what you're supposed to be feeling. And so, and like the wisdom from heaven is pure and it's peaceful. And so it's kind of like when you feel envy and selfish it's kind of important to like check yourself and like realize that that's not from heaven. That's a different feeling that you shouldn't really
Yeah.
have.
It also feels like it's contrasting those things like jealousy and selfish ambition to truth.
Can you say that again? Sorry, I did not hear you.
I said it feels like it's contrasting those things like jealousy and selfish ambition to truth and wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a contrast between the two. And I like Cece said about like it's like you need to check yourself when you're feeling this way. And I think James lays it out really nicely that like bad, good, like it's an easy way to think of like, this isn't a good way to approach this because of how I'm feeling about it. Let's like take a step back and think about just like process it through again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, like Cece was saying, when you are emotional, like it's hard to make that distinction that like it's not like a natural feeling that's like something good, but it's like actually like the devil like tempting you or like something evil like working inside of you, and like that's kind of a hard distinction to make. So
I think the 18th verse kind of closes the chapter out nicely when it says, "And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace for those who make peace." It's like it's a comforting line for me.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like you know that you'll be peaceful and your life will be peaceful just as long as you
Cece, I think you cut out. Can you repeat that last part again?
did.
Yeah.
I don't know if your life will be peaceful and good if you show other people peace and make them feel like good about everything.
Yeah, I think
it's kind of like the treat others as you'll be treated.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah. So is there, from those two chapters, I think kind of what we want to do to close up is for you to like essentially sum up what you think James is trying to say. Look, Hannah sent a message to everyone of what I'm about to say. If you had to explain these two chapters in 5 words, what would those words be? And it could be like 5 words that don't connect to each other, or it could be like a sentence of 5 words or a phrase. So everyone can kind of have a minute to kind of think through that. And then we'll share them.
Five words.
Mm-hmm. Everyone touch their nose when they're done.
Text it.
I like what Cece did. So does everyone want to try and type it into the chat, and then we'll go around and share? I think that'll be a good, people that are on phones, how easy is that for you?
It's easy. There's just like a little dot at the bottom, and you can click
Okay.
it, and then you can type. I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
No, I really like, I think I'm a visual person, so it helps me be able to see the words, which is why I like following along in a Bible when people read. Okay. Cece, since you put it in first, we'll just kind of go down. Do you want to share
Okay.
what you wrote and why you wrote that?
I said love because that's kind of, it kind of ties into the like treat others as you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
That it kind of shows that it's like if you give others peace, then you will receive peace.
Mm-hmm.
So like you get what you give,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of James's messages. All right, Carissa?
I said be conscious of your impact. Kind of sum up, you to be aware of, what your words are like and how they're impacting people, and be conscious of how you're keeping the law, and like don't guide people wrong, and be like try to pay attention and practice what you preach, and don't be partial to people. I feel like it doesn't really get everything, but it is a piece of most everything that was in these passages.
So I'm next. So for me, I kind of did like 5 singular words that I thought kind of helped tie the themes together. And those for me were mercy, gentleness, peace, faith, and works. I talked earlier about the mercy thing, kind of in that difficult part, when I was talking about kind of breaking the law or breaking or sinning. And I just think that these words are almost synonymous with each other. Like they obviously all interrelate, and go towards the same kind of like theme of kind of what y'all are saying of like, of what you put out there is what you also get back, or loving your neighbor as yourself and things like that. Those are all kind of tools for those actions. Caroline?
So I kind of said something similar to along what Carissa said, but just like being mindful about your words and actions, especially like for us on SLT, because some of the kids look up to us, just kind of for guidance as they kind of navigate their own faith journey. And so just like, not only at church, but in like on social media or at school, just, I guess just being mindful about that and not, buying into that kind of double-mindedness, I guess, is what we've been talking about with, workless faith. And then, what it said about like your jealousy and selfishness. I mean, I know that's hard because that's kind of human nature, but just kind of being mindful about that is important. Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Hannah?
I really liked at the end of chapter 3 that image about like sowing in peace and kind of like the harvest kind of metaphor that he was using. So I think that idea of like sowing peace into how you move throughout the world. And then, I don't know, listening to y'all, like this whole idea of faith and works, like I have a new kind of lens after our conversation today. So that's something that stuck out to me.
Thank you. Lizzie?
Okay, so I did something similar to Lillian where I just wrote, now I see that this is 6 words, but I just picked 5 things that stood out to me. And so the first 3, kindness, gentleness, faith, and works, like those are things that I really took away from the reading that like I really need to work on. And those are like really good tools to have, like to spread love and to show love to others, like everyone was talking about. And then the 2 things, hypocrisy and judgment, those were definitely in there, and we're talking about things not to do. So like also for me, those are things I would like to work on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thank you all for sharing and writing those. I feel like we all took away some of the same things, but also each kind of had our own things that really stuck out and things that we really needed to kind of hear and experience today. So thank you. It is about 9 o'clock now, so we've been on here for about an hour. So I think we'll go ahead and close in prayer. And then you are free to go, or also welcome to stay. It's also kind of a fun way to see each other's faces and talk. Would anyone like to close in prayer?
I can.
Thank you.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
God, thank you so much for this hour with these people in such uncertain and I guess quarantine times. Thank you for, I guess, the technology to be able to do this. I ask that you be with us all during the next couple weeks as we try and navigate this uncertain time and bring us all back together soon. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Caroline.
Y'all, this was awesome. This was such a fun way to start the morning.
It was. Hannah, do you want to end the recording?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. This all doesn't need to be